Welcome to What's Next, Living Longer, Better, Smarter. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Mary Furlong, and in this episode, a scam fighter and an extraordinary writer. Two guests you'll really want to meet. This edition is made possible by Silver Shield. I don't have to tell you that scams are getting smarter and smarter. How to fight back? Silver Shield can help you gain an edge and stay ahead. They provide 24/7 scam support and instant verification through the tools you already use, text and email. No complicated apps, just clear guidance and simple reporting. Trusted by New York State and aging organizations across the country to protect those who need it most. Recognized by AARP as one of the top new scam fighting technologies of 2026. Learn more at silvershield.ai. And you're about to hear much more about it. Fraud 2026 is the cover story in the March-April AARP Bulletin. It's a guide to spotting scams and staying safe. And Mary, a company you have worked closely with, is featured here, Silver Shield. And we're happy to have the founder, Alec Glassman, joining us. Hi, Alec.
Hey, Fred, Mary, how you both doing?
Well, I've heard of first mover advantage when you talk about issues and topics with founders, but I've never seen kind of the watching you at the press club in December talk about this issue, the traction you're getting in New York, and now this amazing cover story on the issue. So, congratulations, Alec. And the recognition in the AARP Bulletin is so well deserved. So, let's start out with a description of what Silver Shield does.
Yeah, so, Silver Shield makes it easy for anyone to spot and stop scams and fraud. It works over the, tools and devices you're used to using. So over text and email, you don't have to download anything. There's not really any training. It just fits into your life and into your usual workflow. And we're really focused on, helping everyone. Scams are an everyone problem, not just older adults, and lots more to say about that because I think it's a really big misconception. But unfortunately, older adults are hit the hardest. And so for now, we're really focused on figuring out how we can help older adults because they're impacted the most.
And tell us more about how did the company come about and how have you developed it? And then what's going on with your travels in New York?
Yeah, oh man, lots of fun stuff there. So, for me personally, I've always just loved the idea of doing well while doing good. I interned at MasterCard when I was a sophomore in college, and the CEO at the time, Ajay Banga, that was his big phrase was how do you do well while doing good? How do you build excellent companies that are positive on society? Which I think both of you see that all the time, right? Because in age tech, that's so often the case. And so for me, like I was a comp sci major, I started my career in structured finance, and I just felt like I wasn't doing that. And so I left and I went and got an MBA and I said, okay, how can I actually do this? Like, how can I build things that help people positively? Um, so I don't want to get too much into my background and stuff. I was like helping with a financial technology company that helps rank and file employees, and that was super cool. But eventually I'm like, okay, I'm ready to do my own thing. And so I went searching. And that's when I came across this issue of financial fraud and abuse affecting older adults. And so the first thing that I did with Silver Shield is I actually lived with my folks in a retirement community for 2 months in Florida. And that was an unbelievable experience because I realized how big this problem was and that it was bigger than I think what most people imagine. Um, but I also realized like my North Star coming into this was south. Like I was thinking about everything completely wrong. I had the wrong approach. I had the wrong solution in mind, everything. And so it was kind of amazing because talking to older adults every day, I'm like, oh my gosh, huge problem, wrong approach, throw everything away, build something new. And that's what I did. And so then I kind of went around the country to all these conferences, talking to hundreds of professionals, ex-FBI, NSA, but also adult protective services, case managers, older adults themselves. And people were really excited. Next thing you know, we had a product and a pipeline, and I got invited to live at a senior living community, so like a CCRC in rural Ohio for 2 weeks in August. And I lived there, I learned a lot about life, learned a lot about our product and validated some hypotheses we needed to, make sure were true before we could really scale out to the world. and then New York happened, and that's been so amazing, and we're activating there. That's been super cool. Pennsylvania has been a lot of fun. We have some more states that we maybe can or can't talk about right now that we're going to be launching with soon that we're really excited with. So like, it's been this whole big process, and I'm sorry that was a really long answer to a short question, but that's been the journey so far, and it's been a blast.
And Silver Shield is available to anyone by subscription in addition to these arrangements that you're making with government.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, ultimately, our goal is to help as many people as we can, so we're always going to make it available to people if they want to just go buy it. It's $5 per user per month, which we've heard from folks in various parts of the country and like different socioeconomic backgrounds that it's very reasonable, and that's our intention. But ultimately, we want to make it possible to get it to everyone without the need to pay for it. And so things like what we're doing with New York are so cool because we can do that.
Step us through how it works. What a customer does. They go on to the App Store. What happens?
So you actually don't go onto the App Store, and that's probably the greatest thing. So right now, for example, in New York, what will happen is let's say you have a case manager that's talking to an older adult and they realize this is someone who deals with scams a lot on their own, or they've had previous encounters with scams and just need a little bit extra help. We type in their name, their email, their phone number, and hit enter, and that's it. The person's registered and they can start using Silver Shield, which is super cool, right? So that person gets a welcome text message and a welcome email, and from that point forward, they can text us any questions they have. They can email us any questions they have, or forward us emails that they're suspicious of. And we'll respond and coach them through these situations, get them the help that they need. And we'll even do things like help report it to the agencies or help them share it with their community. So we really think about turning people from targets to heroes. Like that's what we are in the business of doing. And it's cool because we can do it and fit into people's regular lives. Does that help answer your question, Fred?
It does. And it's available 24/7. So if I get something, an email that I'm not so sure about or a text, I would forward it to Silver
That
Shield.
yeah, that's exactly right. So you get an email, you're not sure, like, you don't want to go to your kid for a whole litany of reasons, right? Maybe some people unfortunately don't have trusted people they can go to, but like people just want to be independent, you know? And that's not an older adult thing, that's an everyone thing, right? People want to be independent and they care about purpose. And the last thing people want to do is to go to their kids for help. And I get it. I totally, totally get it. And so what we really do is we empower people to be able to help themselves through these situations. So like, yeah, Fred, exactly. Like you get an email, you're not sure, you forward it to us. You get a call from your credit union. We hear this all the time. I got a call from my credit union. Um, and they said there's been fraudulent activity on my account. Well, you either hang up that call and text Silver Shield that scenario, right? Or if you're uncomfortable and you don't want to hang the call up, you put it on speaker and you text Silver Shield and you say, "Yeah, I just got this call. What do you think about this?" And we'll walk you through what you should do to handle that situation safely. So we're able to provide that 24/7 reassurance for folks, which we think people really appreciate.
Now, you pitched at our conference at the National Press Club, and you already had this partnership with Greg Olson at the State of New York. Did other people want to meet with you after you pitched in DC?
Yeah, it was cool. I think what we're doing resonates with people, and I think that people see this issue with the folks that they're trying to help within their communities. So whether that's, Secretary of Departments of Elder Affairs, which we're talking to, whether that's other AAAs in various parts of the country that we're talking to, whether it's different kinds of, home care, caregiving organizations who we're talking to, all of those were examples of conversations that we had coming out of that. And what was cool was that like everyone cares. Like it's a really nice thing. It's what rocks about this industry in general is it's just like good people who want to help people that care about solving real problems. And so you may think like what would a state have in common with a caregiving agency, have in common with a AAA, have in common with a bank or a credit union? And it turns out actually everyone just really wants to solve this problem and everyone sees it come through at different times in sort of the scam life cycle. So yes, Mary, we spoke to lots of really great people following that. And like there was this really common thread, which was cool.
So I want to talk a little more about the bulletin. So I've had stories throughout my career in the bulletin. There's no bigger vehicle to have the story told than this because it reaches 35 million older adults. And like you tried to find it at the newsstand, but it wasn't there because you have to be a member. But I want you to talk about the other kinds of companies, the company you're in, because they profile large companies trying to solve this problem. Who are the large companies trying to work on this?
I think that what's been really cool to see as I've gotten personally deeper in this world is that there's a lot of really big companies that are trying to help this. And so there were six other companies that AARP addressed with really helpful solutions that like everyone should go check out. Everyone should do everything they can to avoid being in these bad situations, right? So there's lots of great solutions. So they mentioned Apple has new solutions, Meta, McAfee, MasterCard, um, Microsoft, and Google. I don't think I said Google yet.
That's pretty good company for a startup company to be in, right?
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. And it's funny because I do think what's interesting there is people will ask me a lot of times, people like always ask startups like, how are you different? Or what are you focusing on? Or how do you think about competing with other folks? And like, I don't think that we're competing with Google and Apple and Meta and McAfee and MasterCard and Microsoft. Like they all have incredible solutions in their ecosystems. And all that we're doing is working unbelievably hard to get to know older adults in this issue as much as we possibly can
And
and
that
figuring out.
shows, I think you're doing that initial work with your parents, being out there talking to people. You know, we often talk about the ecosystem of longevity. What you're describing in terms of the points of contact is so true. Um, so Fred, do you want to find out what lies ahead?
Yeah, let's ask what's ahead for Silver Shield and where people can find you.
Oh man, what's ahead? So much. We're still we're really excited with the New York partnership and we're continuing to activate there. We're going to be launching in another pretty notable state in April that we're very excited about. And we're actually starting to have conversations with some other sorts of institutions that really care about helping older adults. So there's some more cool commercial updates to come down the line. But for us, we just care about building the best product we possibly can and helping people the most. And so the thing that I'm probably most excited about is we have this awesome solution. It's super cool and it's about to be so much better. And that's like the coolest thing. That's what's fun about software is you can really just continue to improve things. Yeah.
And you're making use of I think too, aren't you?
Yeah, and you know what? So okay, so I got a call yesterday from an older adult from a county in New York who read about us in AARP, and she got my like personal number somehow, and and what she said to me was really interesting because she was like, "Wait a second, you're AI?" We're like, yeah, but we use it for good and we put guardrails in and we make sure it's safe and we're doing it in all the right ways and we care about your privacy and we do, right? And I kind of told her all of those things. And she was like, huh. She's like, AI scares me, right? This is the first thing she said. AI scares me. But I think it was reassuring for her to hear how we're using it. And I could be like, hey, like, we're using AI for good. And I think that was a really cool thing for her to hear.
I did want to say that I love the depth of scope of the issue because it really goes in and shares a lot of information that I think our members want to read. What excites me, and Fred and I have been working together for 25 years across different companies. So Kara Swisher now has a new CNN special coming out on longevity. Many people are taking to Substack. Uh, and so how we use these new medium to tell our story, and yet print still works. people read print. And so I'm so excited that we got the story and we're able to tell it today. And thank you for being with us and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's so cool. My aunt texted me Sunday. It's so cool you're in AARP. And I'm like, you gotta send me a picture. I feel like the turnaround to this is really feels like a whirlwind.
You'll
And
never hear from as many people as being in the bulletin. I promise.
yeah, so it's been fun. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Mary, our next guest is a woman who these days is the author of Editor's Journal on Substack, taking on everything from love and loss to aging and whatever comes to her brilliant mind. Myrna Blyth has been editorial director of AARP Media, is former editor-in-chief of Ladies' Home Journal, led More Magazine and Family Circle. Myrna, we are so happy to have you with us on What's Next, Living Longer, Better, Smarter. You are all of that and more.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you, Fred. I'm delighted to talk to Mary, who is an old friend and a colleague, a longtime colleague.
Yes, we've had a lot of time creating together in this marketplace. So it's wonderful to see you. You're such an inspiration. I actually signed up for Substack as a member last night of your Substack, and there are many, many things we can talk about. I often find when I read one of your pieces, I send them to a friend. So today I did that. It was the piece about you and Mort. And then she lived in Texas. And then I call them and we talk about the piece. So I think this is your voice is what's so amazing. So let's start uh, talking about this new editor's journal on Substack. At 86, you have so much wisdom, and it's your voice that carries these discussions. And I feel like I know the characters. So talk a little bit about what inspires you and which ones are getting the most writers to write back.
It's interesting. What inspired me was just a desire to write and a desire to talk about the past, about my present, how I was negotiating aging, which is a real issue that I think people don't want to talk about enough. They want to pretend they're not aging. And that seems to me as silly as saying a teenager shouldn't be a teenager. It's a part of life. And this is part of a life. And so it was just a combination of these things, the past, the present, negotiating the present, thinking about the future. And it's interesting, the pieces that have gotten the most, and I'm kind of amazed how quickly you can get thousands of views, whether you have thousands of subscribers or not. And I do hope everyone will subscribe. Editor's Journal by Myrna Blyth. But the stories that have gotten the most are an 80-plus love story, which was a story about a relationship I had with a very unusual man, who frankly was someone Mary knew as well. A piece I wrote about letting the old woman in, about accepting that maybe you do need a rail on your bathtub if you want to get in and out easily, and a piece about my brother, which I just published yesterday and have gotten over 2,000 views almost immediately. And my brother was very close to me. He was for many years my best friend. And truly, as I say, Ozempic would have changed his life. He was a person who was morbidly obese. And I learned from that, though I had published many, many diets, that people like that, it isn't what they eat. It's what their body does to what they eat. And so it would have totally changed his life. And I am sorry he was passed away, frankly, years before we recognized that this type of obesity is a disease that needs medication.
Myrna, you had written about him before, I think,
Yes,
in a piece called The Truth About Caregiving,
yes,
where you also tell us about the loss of your husband.
yes. And that piece was frankly a very honest piece about caregiving, which said it sucks. it's very hard to be a caregiver. And I know people do it and you do it with love, but at the same time, it's very difficult. And it also depends on the person who you're caregiving for. My husband was a complainer, and it was hard to deal with someone who every day woke up with the expectation that he would feel better, and when he didn't, he complained. Many people, when they are very sick, accept it in different ways. Frankly, I was just talking to Marlo Thomas, who was a caregiver for her husband, Phil Donahue, and I think for her it was very positive. She loved him, and no matter what he felt, she wanted him to feel as good as possible. But as I say, caregiving is difficult. And my brother was a caregiver for my parents. And at the end, again, I and my sons briefly were a caregiver for him.
I have to talk about these men in your life because I feel like I knew them. I felt like I knew your brother, and I've always felt like a close friend of yours. So I love that line where he said, "You're going to need to find some other
Yes,
friends."
yes.
But I love the role. I never knew about the role he played in your son's life, taking him to Florida and being very active in his life, and also that your son. Um, has his place in Florida.
Yes, my brother never married, and so we grew much closer after I had my young older son and then my younger son, and he really became a companion for them. He loved taking them out for Chinese food and ribs, and he watched Blazing Saddle and Monty Python with them, and he took them to Florida to visit their grandparents, and he just was a very active part of their lives. And he did, at the end, after my parents passed away, he did live bought a house in Florida, and he was very happy there for about 10 years, and we would go and visit him. When he died, he left the house to my sons. One of them bought them from the other, though my other son now wants the house in Florida. And it's very much, he feels my brother's presence there, and I feel my brother's presence there.
And I think that's what we do when we want to keep those memories alive. So I have to talk a little bit about your caregiving story because I heard from a lot of people about that. And you and I have joked about starting a caregiving newsletter called Wine and Wine, or you and your friends had Wine and Wine.
Yes.
But I know your husband was in media, and that was a long journey. He didn't like the fact that I helped you get connected in Washington because you were a caregiver from long distance in part, right?
I was a caregiver, and in a way, I must say, my husband gave me a gift because I did join AARP when he was already sick, and when I was offered the opportunity of the job, which meant I would go to Washington every Monday, come back every Thursday, he encouraged me to take it, and that really was a gift, even though I know he did not like that I was away. And still, yes, I was caregiving. He did have a full-time caregiver at home, but I know it was a big choice that he made to make sure that I would continue to have a life that would satisfy me after he passed away. And he passed away about a year after I started working at AARP, which
I,
is the only place in the world you can get a job at 73 and work for 13 years and they not want you to leave. But at the same time,
you did a great job for them, but I remember in the early days he would kind of clip for you. I'd go to your house and he would have articles that he thought
oh
would
yes,
be
and
interesting.
he
Yeah.
would have so enjoyed the internet without having to have clipping for everything to just be available. We had files and files of clipping. And yes, my husband was a great journalist, and it's interesting. Since I just saw Marlo and a mutual friend of ours, we all talked about how our husbands had helped make us the person we were, and certainly my husband did.
And now I have to talk about Mort because
Yes.
that story I could be it was as if I was in the restaurant watching the two of you having this meal together, and how those moments that, how I love the line in your Substack where you talked about it doesn't matter if you're 15 or 85, you're going to change your outfit 3 times and get your hair done. So I say this when we're dating later in life, it takes us all day to get ready for the date. When you're 17, you put your hair in your ponytail and you're fine. But you uncover a lot in that piece, what it means to be dating again. And I think that this is a reality as we start seeing the boomers at 80 navigate dating. The chances of them meeting someone with health conditions is a real thing, correct?
As I said, I think when you meet someone, even beyond 75, even earlier, but really then, you have a lot of baggage. And so people have baggage of children, problems, financial, a whole bunch of things. When you add to that illness, it can be very difficult. Yes, yes, I met him. We talked for 3.5 hours. It was like, I can tell you anything. He could tell me anything. And then he said, well, I have something else to tell you. And like, what? And it was, I have 4th-stage metastasized cancer. And that was a kind of shocker.
Well, the funny part of the story, I don't know if I ever told you, is that he had asked me after his divorce to introduce him to someone. And I introduced him to someone. I went to lunch in New York. You know this person. And afterward, he said, "Oh, she scared me." It should have been earlier that I had made the connection there. But I loved the way he wrote. And of course, he was an important mentor for many, many people, and such a I love that romance. I was right there ready to be a bridesmaid, you know. So-
I have a friend like that too, but it wasn't to be. And I'm glad. I think that last year that he knew that there was someone to write to and talk to that was new, was good. And even though as life went on, he got more and more focused on making sure that his past was good when he left, his children, his grandchildren, and what he had done for the city, because he was a person who was very interested in making sure that the city he lived in would profit from all he had achieved.
I once said to him when we sold Third Age, I said, "What should I do now?" He said, "You'll shine a light on people and causes that matter." So on the evolution of women as you get older, you had such an important role at AARP. And then you went on and you went to get an advanced degree. Um, how how do you keep reinventing yourself? Why did you choose this medium of Substack? And then I want to hear a little bit, and I know Fred wants to come into this and Alec too, talk a little bit about this column about the experts in longevity, because he seemed to be a new expert every day, you know.
Yes. Well, I don't think I've reinvented myself at all. I've tried to find a way to continue doing things that I've been comfortable with without, I used to say I was better at telling other people what to do than doing it, but I knew that wasn't possible anymore. And so I just tried to figure out what I could do that would give me a sense of satisfaction. As for the longevity business, or I call it the aging business, I personally have real problems with what I call the longevity gurus. And yes, it's great to exercise and it's great to do all the things that keep us as fit and with it as possible. But let's lean in a little to the fact of aging and accept that experience the same way we've accepted other experiences in our lives.
Well, let's bring Alec in because I mean he's like what 75, Alec, and you are the new 30.
Something like that, yeah.
Just kidding.
How old are you? Oh, dare I ask? I shouldn't ask.
Is that allowed? I'm 31.
Okay.
So
Well,
30,
God
30 is
bless.
the new 30.
But I played rugby in college, and so I've had, I don't know, I think that my body's accelerated a little faster maybe than my age, and that's a good.
Well, don't hope for that. Don't hope for that. But I'm interested in helping older people in this area.
So we were chatting about that earlier, and I think you'll probably just appreciate it. I just think as a general sense, I love the idea of doing well while doing good. I think that you can build exceptional companies that help make society better. And for a long time, I've been trying really hard to put myself in positions where I can do that. And so I came across this issue of financial fraud and abuse of older adults, and I went and lived with my folks in a retirement community for 2 months, and I saw how big of an issue it was, and I saw how misunderstood of an issue it was, um, which was more motivating to figure out how to help solve it and help empower people to protect themselves. And then as I've gotten deeper and deeper into this world of aging, um, it's just been eye-opening for me. I went to the American Society on Aging's conference last year, and they had this like half-day intensive anti-ageism boot camp that I did. And I left there and I kind of just said, "Oh my gosh, I like how didn't I see all of this before?" And it's a lot of what you were talking about in your recent Substack post, Myrna, just about reframing aging and viewing it positively and also like seeing ageism everywhere. But I just as I've gotten into this world, it's just it's crazy how much you learn. And it's also crazy how many incredible people are in this world and just want to help and do things to try and make people's lives better. That was a long answer to a short question. I'm sorry.
No,
Uh
no, thank you. Thank you. And as I say, good luck, best wishes. It certainly is a need, and I trust you will be very helpful in that space.
we're working on it. And I will say, I think that ageism, really appears a lot in the scam and fraud world too. In that people like always assume that maybe older adults are more vulnerable. And it actually turns out when you go to the data that younger people are more likely to report losing money to a scam or a fraud than older adults are. But older adults have nest eggs and life savings. And if you lose all your money when you're out of the workforce, that's a really big problem because you can't recoup it. Um, and so I just want to call out like everything that you talk about in your Substack and just addressing some of these preconceptions people have with aging. It happens in lots of funky places and ways, and we see it in our world too. And it's something that needs to be addressed because like scams are an everyone problem, not just an older adult problem.
Absolutely. And I think one thing with older adults, when they're scammed, they're extremely ashamed and they believe it is because they are older instead of knowing that anybody can be scammed. They're really clever. I mean, yesterday I came upon something that I'd in a way like to ask. I was on my bank app and it said it should be updated. And that made me very nervous. Should it be with the bank? That's the kind of question you have. And you think, oh my God, if you do it, you've done something wrong. And if you don't do it, you've done something wrong. So I,
Yeah. And like you have that question, and maybe for some of the same like, emotional reasons why people maybe feel ashamed if it happens to them, that could be a driver for why you don't necessarily ask people around you for help. And if you don't ask people for help, then it could get you caught in this web. It's really hard to get out of. And so I think you're bringing up something really important, and that's what we've seen too, which is people just need an easy way to get help when they need it and get advice when they need it and know what to do in a shame-free way. Um, so
And as we said before, that like when you go into senior communities, which Bob Kramer this week, I said the average age of people going in is closer to 94, I think. So now they have system operators that tech support, like a smarter service in senior communities, because on average, people are going in with 9 devices. So, but when you're aging in place at home, you need some help around the printer, around these other issues. So, Fred, should we bring Myrna back and talk about her degree, getting her degree at Hopkins?
Yeah,
And
you alluded to it, and you did this, Myrna, 65 years after getting your
Yes,
bachelor's.
yes. I got my master's degree from Johns Hopkins exactly 65 years after I'd gotten my bachelor degree. And at the moment, I'm taking a doctorate at Georgetown, which I know sounds in a way more impressive than it is. It is a doctorate in liberal studies. My degree was my master's was in liberal arts. And I did want to go on and take another program because as much as I enjoy taking courses, I don't like to not have the responsibility of having to hand in papers and getting graded. I mean, this is my own peculiarity. It's nice to listen to a course, but unless you have to do more, I just don't, I just find it more important. It is hard to get a liberal studies degree online, but Georgetown, even though the program is in place, has allowed me to do it. So I'm now taking a doctorate in liberal studies. And it's very interesting. You take one course a year up to the point when you start working on your own dissertation. And I do think now it will be easier to do a dissertation than it once was. And that is not because AI is going to write it, but because AI is going to lead you to the kinds of research you have to do much more easily than at one time when you had to read microfiche to work on your doctorate. Now I think AI and your computer is of great help.
What's your definition of retirement, Myrna?
You know, I was a little concerned and yet about retirement. And I think you have to work at retirement. Some people. Some people really enjoy the freedom, not having anything to do, and also maybe having a real support system of family, community, religion. I think there are people who really enjoy their retirement when they have a community, maybe live in a smaller town or have a very local community within a city like New York, where they see friends on a very regular basis, where they go to church or synagogue every week. I thought it was very interesting, and I'm sorry for her, and God knows for Savannah and Nancy Guthrie, that people already recognized that something was wrong when she didn't come to church on Sunday morning. So I do think some people in retirement have a lot of support that makes it very comfortable. I think other people need to work on it to make it their days full and to give them the sense of relevance and interest that they will have in their career.
When I was living at a senior living community in rural Ohio for 2 weeks, this past August, I saw exactly what you're talking about because people there basically took the skills that they'd amassed over their lives and they actually started teaching classes to each other. So the bulk of the programming that was done at this senior living community was not put on by staff there. It was actually put on by members. So there was a bells course, there was a watercolor course, there was croquet, there was a euchre tournament that would happen every other week. Um, all these different things. And it was people that were like, I love this thing. I want to share it with folks, and I'm gonna put a little extra work in here and kind of make like a course around it. And it was this really cool way of driving purpose that I think made a difference for a lot of people in their life, and that's why everyone was so happy there.
Well, I think you're both raising a really important point. And the challenge comes from people who put a lot of energy into the work. And this is happening to a lot of people today, even younger, with the downsizing. Then who are they if they're not playing that role in a company? And communities, when the kids are gone, you have to go actively and seek out that Tai Chi class or that book club. You have to really put yourself out there to form community. And it's better you're right, when they have a faith-based community or they have a close network of friends. But it's also hard, and another topic for you to write about, Myrna, is we've been talking about friendship. When you lose a friend and that friend has all your memories, that's another topic. I want to touch one last before we go on the media landscape today. I find it incredibly exciting to be here with Myrna. You used to be overseeing this magazine. So we have Alec, who's about to watch his company
Benefit from
get
it.
get a lot of reader.
But there, AARP is unique. You still can benefit from things that are printed on paper, and the magazine and the bulletin, which goes directly into people's homes and is one of the major benefit of being an AARP member that's tangible. In truth, paper media is pretty well over, and we do get our media digitally. It's not quite the same. I think media at this time, there's never been more. That doesn't mean we're better informed. There is, I call it at the moment, the fog of news, because everything is given to us as if it's equally important. You get a notification that a member of a rock band that you never even heard of died at 75, and that's the equivalent of a boat being sunk in the Straits of Hormuz, which has not happened yet, thank God. But what I'm trying to say is, I think media at the moment is overwhelming, omnipresent, and both more available and giving you less clarity probably than ever before, to be honest. But we all read, watch, absorb, etc. As for traditional media, clearly paper media is going. I mean, I'm just kind of stunned when I see a printed copy of the New York Times, and I read the New York Times every day, but I read it online. I read Apple News, so I read 180 magazines and newspapers, but it's all online. I also read things that have particular viewpoints that I am very comfortable with, and do not read the things with viewpoints that aren't I'm comfortable with. So I think that pretty much the reader or the observer of media is the way we deal with media today.
I was really happy to see a copy of the Financial Times at the same newsstand where I pick up the Wall Street Journal on the weekend. So I've actually tried to diversify my sources of media. But when I looked into Substack, and I think that's the perfect place for you to go to develop your stories, I think it really has it can have a profound impact. And I hope you have a lot of success telling these stories. And it's awfully fun to read. I think of them. Joni Evans used to say this is like the icing. I think it's like the icing on the cupcake.
Well, thank you. And I do hope people will subscribe. Editor's Journal by Myrna Blyth. I may even start, you're giving me inspiration, Mary. I may even start a podcast, and I'm going to have you on my podcast in a couple of months when I get as good at it as you and Fred now are. So thank you so much.
Well, we'd love to have you back anytime you have a story to tell. And Alec, we can't wait to hear who you hear from in the next couple weeks as the bulletin goes out. So Fred, thank you.
Again, it's Editor's Journal by Myrna Blyth, Blyth. Thank you again to Myrna and Alec, and thanks also to our sponsor, Silver Shield. Fight back against scammers by signing up for Silver Shield. It provides 24/7 scam support and instant verification through the tools you already use, text and email. No complicated apps, just clear guidance and simple reporting. Trusted by New York State and aging organizations across the country to protect those who need it most. Recognized by AARP as one of the top new scam fighting technologies of 2026. Learn more at silvershield.ai. And thanks to all of you for taking the time to join us. You can always find more at maryfurlong.com/podcast.